Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be covering the deck that I'm sure all of you have been anticipating. I don't know if it's quite been eager for everyone. It has been for me though. I've definitely been looking forward to this. We're going to be playing with Spright, and this is a pure Spright build. So one of the notable things about Sprights, this new deck that has come into Master Duel, is that it's not only good on its own, but it's good in a lot of different decks as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can build this deck. However, I figured I'd start right off the bat by just going into a quote-unquote pure build, where we're not blending it with any other archetypes, so we can get an idea of what Sprights are capable of on their own, and then see how that then is implemented into other decks. So this is very much a day one build for me. Let's see, I'm looking at the time here. Yeah, Sprights have been on Master Duel for all of like a little over 3 hours at the time that I'm recording this. So, yeah, this is definitely going to be a bit of a preliminary build here, but it is one that I've researched quite a bit. I've definitely been doing my homework over the last couple of days and putting this together, as well as the other builds that I've got to show you here as well. So I'm going to go through this one pretty in-depth, a little bit more in-depth than I do most deck profiles, because a lot of these cards are new. There will not be any combo guides shown in this video. However, I will be posting a separate combo guide, likely coming out tomorrow, that you'll be able to take a look at. We'll go through the lines very closely. Of course, after going through the deck itself, we will be taking a look at some games with the deck too. So, as far as the build here goes, with Pure Spright, Pure Spright is one of those decks that the archetypal cards, actually, you kind of hit all the cards you want to play, and you're still at like 30 at that point, and that can even include like Maxx and Ash Blossom. So this is definitely one of those combo decks that can afford to play a lot of disruption and hand traps. As you can see, we've got the PSY-Frame package here. I thought for a second, because I saw the driver but I didn't see Gamma for a second, I was like, did I put in driver but not Gamma? But no, we're playing PSY-Frames here. These kind of help us if we start with like starter or something like that, and they try to ash it, we can potentially use PSY-Framegear Gamma. Of course, on top of that, also just being good at disruption. For our level 2 engines that we're using to help support our Spright monsters, for this build I have elected, of course, with Swap Frog and Ronintoadin being a very good engine, and I decided to go with Deep Sea Diva and Yamatako Orochi. I don't know if this is necessarily the best way to build the deck. The other, if I can spell here, geez. The other way that you can build the deck is to use the Nimble monsters. As you can see, I still haven't even crafted Nimble Beaver yet, but I definitely will be soon. Yeah, the Swap Frog and Ronintoadin engine is pretty universally accepted as one of the better level 2 engines you can use, and it is definitely one of the better ones. Aside from that, in Pure Sprights, some people use Diva and Yamatako, some people use Diva without Yamatako, and then some people use Nimble Beaver as well as a single copy of Nimble Angler. For this build in particular, I decided to try out the Diva with the Yamatako. Yamatako is not level 2, which is actually honestly a downside sometimes if you open with like just Yamatako and a Spright. In the Spright. I don't know why I thought I misspelled that, but I already said that. Anyway, but you can use this as a level 8 Synchro monster, and it's a tuner. So that, plus any level 2, is going to equal an easy Baronne right there. So I think that there's definitely some merit to Diva plus Yamatako, particularly in a best-of-1 format like Master Duel. In the TCG and OCG, Nimble Beaver plus Angler has been the way to go, and that is definitely not just an alternative engine, but a good engine you can use as well. But like I said, I wanted to try out the Diva and the Yamatako for myself here. So those are the additional level 2 supplemental monsters. Of course, the Spright monsters themselves we covered a couple days ago, and let's talk about Spright. But in case you didn't see that, quick overview. Blue, they all special summon themselves if you have a level or rank 2 in play. Blue searches for a monster, Jet searches for a spell or trap. Red is monster negation, Carrot is spell trap negation, and I'm playing a single copy of Pixies. Pixies is kind of like an honest, but I'm mostly using it, well, I'm using it for the honest effect and also just as another extender. You don't have to play Pixies, and honestly, I'm already seeing myself probably taking this card out of the deck, but I decided to include it just to mostly have another Spright name there. As far as other Spright cards we're playing in this deck, we've got 2 copies of Spright Starter. This is going to be... A lot of people compare this to Branded Opening, but Spright Starter is definitely a lot better than Branded Opening. It doesn't have a discard as a cost, you just lose life points equal to the monsters attack, which you're pretty much always going to get either blue or jet. So, I mean, you're never going to be taking more than, 1500 damage off of this card. The other nice thing is that blue and jet both need to be special summoned in order to trigger their surges, so starter can be a good way to start. Sometimes it's a little bit awkward if you open like blue and jet exactly. Well, I guess in that case you just normal jet, special blue, blue add jet, then you can special jet and then get the jet effect. So honestly, these cards are so good that like it's openings like that you think would be a little awkward are actually not at all. So. And then, of course, we have one copy of Spright Smashers as well. We're, of course, only getting the bottom effect of being able to banish a card our opponent controls is very, very good, and it really doesn't come at much of a cost. I mean, yes, we do have to banish a monster on our field, but Spright can vomit out bodies so easily that it's really not an issue at all. So like I said, we had quite a bit of room after including all the Spright cards and then our package, our level 2 packages as well. So on top of playing stuff like PSY-Framegear Gamma, you might notice I'm also playing 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent in this deck. And I've actually, in the past I only had 1 copy. I've actually crafted 2 more in addition to all the other Spright cards I had to craft today. That's because I anticipate that Triple Tactics Talent is going to be very, very good moving forward. I mean, to be fair, this card has also like been good up to this point. But the thing that's really going to push it over the edge is going to be Spright Elf. We're going to see so much of Spright Elf coming up in this format. Not just in pure Spright, but in, like, of course, all the Spright variants. And honestly, like, this card is so disgustingly good. You can even, like, from what I could tell in the research that I did, you can even play this card, like, outside of Sprights in some certain engines, because it doesn't really take a lot. It just needs a level rank or link 2 monster 1 and any other monster, and it can bring back any level 2 monster. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's very, very good actually. So, and the fact that it can activate during either player's turn is, I think, why Triple Tactics Talent is going to get so much better. So I'm playing 2 copies of that. Could play a 3rd as well. I don't know. I kind of went back and forth on the PSY-Frame engine a bit, because I can definitely see, like, I've already kind of been able to tell in testing that, like, this might not be ideal, but at the same time, it's not, like, bad either. So, Imperm, I know I very recently said that Imperm is not that great, but that definitely changes moving forward. Imperm I definitely want in the deck to be able to stop, all the Spright shenanigans there. Alright, I think that's about everything I wanted to cover. Oh, the extra deck. No, we have to go over the extra deck. That's right, of course. So, yeah, we have Baronne, of course, with the Yamatako. This is the only reason we have Baronne in here is because of Yamatako. This deck doesn't make it other than that. So, if you're not playing the Yamatako with the Diva, you don't have to bother with Baronne. Djinn Buster we're playing, but, like, this card's kind of meh, honestly. I wouldn't go out of your way to try to end on this card. And it's not even necessarily that the effect itself is meh, but I mean it kind of is. It's only 1 monster negation, but it's also the fact that you have to use Dharc monsters for it. So that's pretty much going to be exactly jet plus blue. So in that regard, it's like you kind of have to go out of your way to make it. And at least in the games I've played so far, it hasn't really seemed like worth it to go out of my way to make it. So I haven't yet. We got Sky Cavalry Centurea. That's of course a good rank 2. That's mostly the one for going into Zeus. Cat Shark is our OTK enabler. You could also play Daigusto Phoenix as well, but Cat Shark is my OTK enabler of choice. You don't have to use this to OTK, it just makes it a lot easier. Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, this was a new card that came out and is just very good spot removal in the form of rank 2. We're of course playing some Sprights, gigantic Sprights that is. We got the Downerd into Zeus. Almiraj is pretty good to enable certain combo lines. IP Masquerena, of course, this is a pretty standard turn 1 card to end on with this deck here. Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, I'm actually probably just about to take out. This was honestly a filler spot, but there are definitely better Link or rank 2s that we could play. Because we're not really going to be Link climbing into too much. I don't know, I'm still a little bit on the fence, like maybe I might try it out a little bit more, but I haven't been impressed with Dharc, even in theory, but in practice as well. And then of course we're playing Appaloosa too, so yeah, that is the build, that's everything there. Like I said, I wanted to go over this a little bit more in detail than I normally do when I talk about decks, just because it is a brand new one. So as always as ever, I'm going to break it down card by card so you know exactly what all these cards are, and then we're going to take a look at some gameplay. So in this build, we're playing one PSY-Frame Driver, one Effect Veiler, one Yamatako Orochi, 3 Deep Sea Diva, 3 Swap Frog, 1 Ronintoadin, 3 Maxx, 2 PSY-Framegear Gamma, 3 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Pixies, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Ash Blossom and a Joyous Spring, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 3 Infinite Impermanence. It's going to round out the main deck there. Now for the extra deck, we're playing 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 number 65 Djinn Buster, 1 Sky Cavalry Centurea, 1 Cat Shark, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Salamangreat Almiraj, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dharc the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 2 Spright Elf, and then 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. It's going to round out the list. Now let's take a look at those games. Alright, so for our first duel of this video, we're going to be playing against Endymion. I'm going to start with this duel specifically because it's going to show what a pretty good and fairly standard turn 1 setup for this deck is going to look like. So, see, we opened the Spright Starter plus another Spright Monster, so Starter plus Extender, that is definitely plays. Honestly, just Starter by itself is also plays. It's very much a 1-card combo, which again, I will go over in a more in-depth combo guide that's going to be releasing tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe so that you can be notified of when that video drops. Alright, so I'm going to go into the Gigatic Spright. Also setting up the Carrot here. I mean, I'm not going to sack the Gigatic Spright for a Carrot if they imperm or anything. Normally, you can sack the monster that is being targeted by imperm. It'll resolve. It's actually not the case for Gigatic Spright. If it leaves the field, it actually won't resolve because you have to detach a material. It's an if you do effect. So if Spright is on the field to have a material detached, then you won't be able to resolve the effect. But in any case, it's going to go for the Spright Elf next, bring back that Swap Frog to further set up our graveyard with the Ronintoadin. Swap Frog is a disgusting card. It was disgusting in 2007, 8? I think 8 actually, or no, it may have been 9. Whenever it came out, I remember thinking like, wow, how is this card not once per turn? And now here in 2023, I'm reading Swap Frog, and once again, I'm like, wow, how is this card not once per turn? So, this is a pretty standard inboard here for Sprites on turn 1. We end up searching another Spright Starter because we had Spright Smashers in our hand, by the way. If we did not have Spright Smashers, I definitely would have just searched this. But this is a fairly standard turn 1 endboard. As you can see, we have the IP Masquerena set up along with the Spright Elf. This Spright Elf is going to be able to bring back a monster during our opponent's turn as well, by the way. We also have a Spright Carrot to negate a spell or trap card, and the Ronintoadin, Des Frog, that can be sacked to trigger that negation. We also have Spright Starter as well, so we can just special the Spright Red, which is monster negation. And then, of course, we have Maxx and PSY-Framegear Gamma in hand. I mean, this is just a very nice setup. Some people might say that Pure Spright is not the best Spright variant. Some people might say that Runic Spright is better. That might actually be true, honestly. It's too early to say right now what the best Spright variant is going to be. However, I will say this. Don't let that trick you into thinking that Pure Spright is bad. Pure Spright is an exceptionally good deck, and even if it's not as good as Runic Spright, it is still as good, if not better, than the other tiered decks that are in the current format. The same is true of Tri-Spright and Life Twin Spright. Those variants are generally considered right now to probably be not as good as Runic or Pure, but that does not mean they are bad decks. So, you might have noticed I'm activating Maxx during the draw phase. This is something that in the past I have advocated against. However, I talked about this during my tournament gameplay, during my top 8 deck report from the other day, or tournament report, not deck report, but during the tournament, I was throwing out Maxx during the draw phase to play around triple tactics talents, and I'm doing that now moving forward on ladder as well, because again, I anticipate because of Sprites, we're going to see a lot more triple tactics talents on ladder. So, throwing out the Maxx, opponent's got a called by. I'm going to use the Spright Carrot on the called by there to negate that by sacking the Ronintoadin. And then I figured I also just threw out the Spright Starter for a red here in the draw phase. So that way I have a monster negate online before my opponent's really doing anything. And we still have the Spright Elf too, keep that in mind. Although that is during the main phase, so we can't do that during the draw phase, even though it is a quick effect. Other nice thing about Spright Elf is that monsters in its zone cannot be targeted, so we don't have to really worry about our IEP Masquerena or Red getting like Veilered, or not Veilered during their turn, but like just, you know, targeted, negated, stuff like that. So it's pretty clear here. The opponent is on Endymion. I'm content to let this normal summoned Jackal get up to 3 counters before I banish it with my Spright Smashers is my plan here. So yeah, I'm just kind of letting my opponent do their place for the time being, but I still have like a lot of disruption represented here. Not only do I have the Spright Red, but we also have the IEP Masquerena, which of course can go into Appaloosa, as well as Nightmare Unicorn if you're playing that. I'm kind of thinking about taking out Dharc and trying out Nightmare Unicorn over it instead, but I might also find another rank or link too I might want. I still have to do a little bit more research on that regard. Opponent's activating the Mythical Beast Master Cerberus from their hand, which is like, you know, there's worse scales they could have had, there's better scales they could have had. I'm not really super worried about it either way, but yeah, I'm just going to use the Spright Smashers there and get rid of the Jackal, like I said. Now they do get to add the Jackal King and start stacking up some spell counters, but yeah, with only, I was about to say, with the few resources they have and the fact that I still have the IP that I can pull the trigger on, and go into an Appaloosa whenever I need to. We also still had the Spright Red live as well. That's kind of what I was waiting for, was for my opponent to use one monster effect activation. Then I could have used Spright Red, sack the Carrot to negate that monster effect, and then from there I probably just would have gone into Apple with my remaining stuff. It's kind of just loosely what I was thinking, but there's a million different ways you could have played it, honestly. But yeah, at that point, just knowing what my opponent had in hand and all the information they'd revealed so far, I figured, like, yeah, they probably don't have a pendulum scale they can set up, and they probably don't have any more spells they can activate for that servant. And sure enough, they didn't. So that's just an example of that's an average Spright hand, honestly. That looked ridiculous, but that is really an average Spright hand. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next duel here. Okay, so this time we're up against Live Twin Spright, and this time I wanted to show you a going second duel where I can show kind of how this deck OTKs. Because this is one thing that I definitely tried to make sure I had down when I was doing my research, was, you know, is there a specific OTK line? Was one of my main questions that I was like asking people who were more knowledgeable about the deck. And it seems like no, there's not like a specific line you necessarily go for, but you just kind of like find 8,000 points along the way, which sounds kind of weird and vague, but it's actually not that bad. I'll show you actually in this duel here, like I said. So once again, draw phase, I'm going to throw out Maxx because of this card right here, Triple Tactics Talent. Particularly here in Upper Diamond, I am anticipating more people to be on Talent. If you're in like Gold or Plat, you probably don't necessarily have to throw out Maxx during the draw phase every single time. I think you're less likely to run into Triple Tactics Talent there, but it's still, I think, generally advisable. So yeah, opponent's just going to pass here. They clearly can't make any plays at all. I mean, during the duel, I didn't know what they were on, but now knowing that they're on Live Twin Spright, I know that, oh yeah, there's no way they would have been able to make like any amount of plays without giving me just like literally 15 to 20 cards in hand. So got the Deep Sea Diva here. I'm going to start with that. Opponent's going to throw out a Maxx, but I'm not really scared of my opponent's Maxx going second here. I know I can find lethal, and I know I can find multiple negates along the way. So I'm going to special the blue from my hand because I control the level 2 Deep Sea Diva. Now I'm going to sync the Orochi with the blue and go into good old Baronne de Fleur. So we already have our Omni negate online. And because, of course, our opponent used an effect during our turn, I'm going to get a couple extra draws off the Triple Tactics Talent here. From there, we're going to just special this Jet and get the starter. Now that we have the red online, I can negate multiple things. I'm definitely not fearing my opponent's hand, like, at all. Oh, and then we had the Swap Frog with the extra Diva, too. That was insane, honestly. Just a very, very good hand here. Yeah, so they've got a Ghost Bell. I'm actually going to allow this to resolve, because I don't necessarily need this Spright Elf special summon in order to find lethal here. now I'm going to go for my Gigantic Spright, and Gigantic Spright, if you weren't aware, actually doubles its attack points if you use basically an extra deck monster, a Fusion Seeker, Xyz, or Link monster as a material. So, you know, I'm already representing just about 8,000 damage here on board, and I still have multiple special summons from the graveyard due to having the Ronintoadin available. I thought I had another Swap Frog Engrave, so I guess it was just the one, but... Actually, now that I look at it, at this stage, did I not have lethal here? Because this is 6,000, 7,000, yeah, that's 7,400, so I still need to find 600 damage at this point. And then my opponent just concedes. Oh, but I still have the Gigantic Spright search. Right, that was the last bit. I was going to say, I knew I had that last bit of damage. I was just trying to figure out where it was. It was on Chain Link 1 there with Gigantic Spright. But, yeah, no, we have the... both of the negates, like I said. I wasn't really fearing my opponent's disruptions because of the fact that we had both negates. And then once the Gigantic Spright resolves, because, again, Gigantic Spright... for those who aren't aware, just absolutely cheats on its conditions, says neither player can special summon monsters. So at that point, they won't be able to Nibiru me. I'll have 8,000 damage, they can't Nibiru, I can just swing in for lethal. So yeah, that's an example of OTKing with sprites and just how insulated that OTK is. It can play through negates. As you saw, it puts up multiple negates, and because, you know, once Gigantic Spright resolves, you don't have to worry about Nibiru. You just don't even have to worry about playing through Maxx a good portion of the time either. It's pretty good. It's actually pretty disgusting. We still have some more games to take a look at, though. Let's go ahead and jump straight into the next one. Alright, so we are up against a mirror match this time. It's going to be a pure Spright mirror. But my opponent's on, I don't know, they're making some interesting tech choices. Like triple Cosmic Cyclone and double DD Crow. Yeah, those, I don't know. I wasn't really a fan of either of those cards in the you know, previous meta, the pre-Spright meta as tech choices, but especially now that we're in post-Spright meta, you don't need to be teching against Runic Stun and Math Mech quite as heavily as you were in the past. So, looking at our turn one hand here, this hand, it might look a little bad, you know, like, oh, Swap Frog and Ronintoadin, like, can we really do anything with that? The answer's actually yes, so I'm going to use Swap Frog, you know, discarding the Ronintoadin. It's got an Imperm, but that's fine, honestly. I'm just going to set this called by Impasse here. So I guess I could have normal summoned Maxx now I think about it. I could have normal summoned Maxx, gone for a Gigantic Spright, banished the Swap Frog, special... Well, I would have gotten Gigantic Spright summon. That could have summoned, like, Blue, and then Jet, and then Smash... Oh, yeah, I had plays here. I should have just normal summoned this Maxx. That's actually the reason I wanted to include this game, because I remember it. I was like, I could have had plays. I'm not used to thinking of Maxx as a combo piece, but you definitely should be starting to get used to thinking of Maxx as a combo piece, because it's got that magical number of level 2. And this wouldn't be the case for this particular play, but in a lot of plays where you use Maxx as a starter, you can actually then bounce it back to your hand. That's one thing I'm going to try to show in the combo guide. I'll show you combos where you can start with a Maxx, summon it for your plays, and then get that same Maxx back in your hand later in the turn. So this was definitely a pretty huge misplay on my part, again, just because I'm not used to thinking of Maxx as a... Oh no, I'm sorry, I thought I had a normal summon still. Alright, we'll disregard what I said about that being a misplay, but don't disregard what I said about this being a combo starter. Maxx, again, weird to think of that as a starter in this deck, but it is, so. I'm going to fire off a Maxx, once again, during my opponent's drop phase. They have a PSY-Framegear Gamma. I'm actually going to Ash Blossom it. That's not going to get rid of the Gamma. It's still going to be in their hand, but it is going to let my Maxx resolve. So, with that, even if my opponent's got a ton of plays, which they probably will, I still have the ability to potentially draw out of it. Here my opponent definitely misplayed by not trying to OTK me here, I think. Let's see, although they only had Swap Frog in red, they would have gone for Gigantic Spright. Gigantic Spright, special blue, blue add Jet, Jet adds... I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, as long as you can get 2 level 2 monsters, you can do that line where you go into Gigantic Spright, special the blue, blue adds Jet, special Jet, Jet adds Starters, Starters specials something else, and... like, you're just kind of off to the races at that point. It's one of many, many reasons why this deck is so disgusting. Back here, I'm going to, like I said, fire off that Maxx. That's enough to get my opponent to back off there. Just next, normal summon the Deep Sea Diva. And the opponent is, of course, going to chain the Spright Red. But thankfully, because they're not saccring a rank or link 2 monster, then, yeah, my monster's only negated and not destroyed as well. Still have the live Ronintoadin engraved, so even though Diva's negated, I can just special the Ronin, get out Gigantic Spright, and then, well, you know, like I said, we're going to special Blue. Blue activates, adds Jet, adds Smasher, or not Smashers, adds Starter in this case, and then, once again, we're just, like, off to the races. I don't really know that I had a line for game, like lethal necessarily, but that's kind of the thing about Spright as well. Spright is almost like, it feels like a combo control deck, because while you don't always have, I mean, there are specific OTK lines you can do, but that's often not the combos you're going to be doing. You're often doing combos that just like stack your board with bodies and negates and advantage, and your opponent's just like not going to be able to play out of it. All right, we have one more duel to take a look at. Let's jump straight into it. This last game is going to be against Mathmech, and they're playing a bit of a Dinomorphia package, which is interesting, but this game is going to kind of show what we can do if we have like a bit of a mediocre start and or we get disrupted. So this start is actually really, really good. This is not a mediocre opening hand. We have starter and then a whole bunch of extenders, but we do only have the one, well, starter. I'm going to say starter, not just referring to the card, but starter is in a card that starts our plays. That being Spright Starters, Spright Jet, and Spright Blue for this deck. So we have the starter and then a bunch of Spright extenders in hand. So I'm going to activate the starter and then get Ash Blossomed, unfortunately. I do have the triple tactics talent, so I will get to draw a couple of cards and try to find a blue or a jet here. Let's see what we end up with. Swap Frog and Diva would also both be great draws here. And we get neither. We do get Maxx and Ash Blossom. Can't complain too much about that. But here, yeah, I'm just going to normal Sprights and then special summon the other two monsters to go for my Gigantic Spright. But the opponent actually has an imperm for the Gigantic Spright as well. So that's definitely going to like super stunt what I was going to do here. I was definitely going to grab the Swap Frog from deck. That way we could send the Ronintoadin to grave, link off the Swap Frog and Gigantic Spright for Spright Elf, bring back the Swap Frog. Again, we'll go over this in more detail in tomorrow's combo guide video. So we do still have some amount of plays here, though. I'm going to link off the two monsters on my board for Spright Elf. Then I'm going to use Spright Elf to bring the Spright Red back. And now what else I can do is, during my opponent's turn, I can use the Spright Elf's effect during their main phase and bring back Spright Carrot. So it's not a great end board for this deck, but it still puts a monster and a spell trap negate on the board. Plus also, because I have the Spright Elf in play, if I need to specifically destroy a card, I can potentially do that as well, because you sack another level 2, level rank, or link 2 monster to negate the effects, but if it's a rank or a link 2, i.e. an extra deck monster, then you get to, well, an Xyz or a link monster, then you get to destroy that card as well. So that could potentially come up. We, of course, also have Maxx and Ash Blossom, which I should have thrown out Maxx during the, like I said, it's still the draw phase, technically. Yeah, okay, there we go. Maxx getting thrown out during the draw phase, but the opponent's got a call by for it. So, yeah, you know, not ideal, but it's not like we can't do anything at all. And if a subpar field still results in you having multiple negates, like, it's a pretty good deck, honestly. Yeah, so let's start with the subtraction here. I'm not gonna bother negating that with red. I'm just gonna use the Spright Elf to get back Carrot. From there, they're going into Lingaribo and then dropping down the Equation. I am gonna use Carrot to sack the Spright Elf here. It's not that I need to negate and destroy Equation. I could, of course, just negate it, but I don't want to sacrifice my Spright Red just yet. I want to keep the monster negation around just in case this last card in hand ends up being live and allows them to go into a combo here. I do also have the Ash Blossom, so even if they can like go into an Almiraj or something, I can negate it that way, but you know, better to be safe than sorry. So I'm just going to use Carrot to negate the Equation. And then my opponent concedes, because they did not have another extender in their hand, it doesn't look like. So, alright, there are those games with Spright. Yeah, like I said, I wanted to show a variety of games to show how this deck plays in a variety of situations. I normally try to do that anyway, but that's definitely very important, obviously, with this new deck coming out. So, yeah, we showed a pretty standard going first. We showed a standard, like, finding an OTK line. We showed this, kind of subpar opening, and then as well as the other game. So, all right, let's go ahead and just move now to our outro. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me, not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.